First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.
Senator Joe Griffo is on the line right now. Senator, good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen. Hard to believe it's already June, isn't it?
I know, it's crazy.
I can't believe it. Wow.
And by the way, let me compliment the three of you on such a great show that you put on each and every day, even during your reruns.
Yes, it's. Were you featured in a rerun?
I'm not sure, but maybe I can advocate for that.
Okay, good. Well, the guy to talk
I'd
to.
love to make the best of.
The guy to talk to is Monaski. You gotta kiss up to him here.
You often make the best of, Senator. Like you, I'm sure you'll be on the best of this evening, and then maybe tomorrow morning as well.
Thank you, Jeff.
And I like what you're saying, by the way. If I can just show my hand here, you're basically saying, hey, I heard you can't find a job. Well, that's bullcrap, and we're going to stop giving you money because there's all these jobs out here that nobody's taken.
Yeah, we are experiencing what normally would be probably something that would be a good problem when there's more jobs than people, right. Even though we want to also try to make sure we're training people properly to take jobs that will be and can be available. But in this particular post-pandemic period, the concern is that many of the businesses who are beginning to restart now, and this is such an important time for not only their success, but for our community's well-being. You cannot see these jobs go unfilled because it will have a detrimental impact on the service that they're providing, as well as from an economic perspective in the community.
Yeah.
So what we're suggesting is there are a number of things that we can consider, but we've got to do something. My concern is we keep identifying it, reporting on it, talking about it, but what are we doing about it? And there's several things that I've urged that we consider. From many 24 states have eliminated the additional benefit. Some have provided signing bonuses in cases where businesses have agreed to do something like that. The proposal that I've advanced and introduced legislation I thought was reasonable and in a common sense fashion is to split the difference, so to speak, where if you're paying an employee a certain amount of wage, but they're making a little bit more on unemployment, we would take that more that they're making on unemployment, add it on top of the wage that the business is paying during the pandemic period only, and then everybody wins. The business gets the employee and functions at full capacity. The employee is making the same amount they would have on unemployment, and the state is saving money because you're not paying the full amount of money on unemployment insurance.
So wait a minute. So, are you saying somebody goes out and they get a job, they're currently on unemployment, they get whatever the federal benefit is plus the extra $300 from New York State. They get a job, but they're allowed to keep getting the New York State benefit, the extra $300 for the rest of the summer?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, well, actually, it's the other way, Jeff. It's the extra benefit is federal. The state calculates it with a number of factors. So say, for instance, you were a business at Town Square Media was going to pay you $500, but you're making $800 with the additional benefit on unemployment. So you're saying to yourself, now making $800 here, I'll only be making $500 if I went back to Town Square. Well, we would, under my proposal, we would take $300 of the $800 you're earning, add it on top of the $500 Town Square is paying you. You're making $800 now. So Town Square gets you back. You're making the same as you would have on unemployment, and the state is saving $500 or $300. So there's a savings to the government. The employee's making the same amount of money. The business gets an employee back. Again, this is just to jumpstart everything during this pandemic period, which will ultimately end, hopefully, by the fall with the federal declarations.
So the problem, the only problem I see with it is now employee A, who decided they were going to do the honorable thing and they were going to go to work, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So employee A decides to work. Now employee B, who has been on unemployment, decides, okay, after this incentive, I'll come back. Employee B is making $300 a week more than employee A.
Well, yeah, if you're in the same business,
Right.
that would be the case. If it's a different sector of the economy, you're right. It's no different than when we're talking about the incentives for vaccination right now. People who have been vaccinated say, well, what about me? So, as I indicated to you guys, this is a beginning. We need to do something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is ultimately the answer, but I'm trying to propose. Many people criticize us. Well, what's your idea? What do you propose that we do? So we're offering a suggestion. We've introduced legislation for consideration. There can be a myriad of things that can be done. My whole point, though, is we can't keep talking about this and see this continue to languish and businesses struggle. Look at the lifeguard situation. It's ridiculous right now that here's a time when you were talking about how we're beginning the summer season.
Right.
Excuse me.
You can't find lifeguards.
Right, and the importance of providing safety and recreational opportunity, and yet you can't fill the jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got to figure this out, and we've got to do it now. We can't wait.
So I see like there's
already June.
Right. I see that there's this is kind of what's wrong with saying, okay, we're going back to the old rules, and that is if you're on unemployment, you have to search for a job. And if you can't get a job, then you'll remain on unemployment. But guess what? There are so many jobs out there. You're going to get a job.
Yeah, what about that?
And we're cutting that extra money. You don't need that extra money anymore because we're out of the pandemic.
Well, that is something that I've also offered as options for consideration by the state government. I have had conversations with the Commissioner of Labor and have urged her to ensure that we're following the protocols and the statutes that currently exist. For instance, there would be sanctions if you refuse work or if you have not proven that you've looked for work. There is the concern some have expressed because they've identified COVID conditions as a problem and they may fear returning to work. Even that, though, I've said that under the CDC guidance, under the departments of health at the state and local levels, who are doing, I think, the local levels particularly an extraordinary job in keeping people safe and ensuring that they're safe, that you can return safely to work. So that shouldn't be an obstacle to bringing people back. So those conversations, Jeff and Bill, I've had with the commissioner to say we need to consider what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, including enforcing the sanctions that already exist under state statute.
Yeah. This is I guess this is one of those unexpected consequences from the pandemic, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's similar to the prices now, right? We're looking at there's a shortage in everything. Prices are higher. You begin to scratch your head and say, what's going on? Because people were buying products even before, and all of a sudden now it's a problem, whether it's fuel or food, and I think that's what frustrates people, and that's why we've got to make sure we're doing everything possible. Particularly when you look at the Department of Labor has been plagued by a number of problems, right? Navigating the system to obtain your benefits. Then there was the identity theft. Then there was the overpayment issue. So we, in my conversation with the commissioner, we just got to get this right. There are things we can do now under existing statutes, which we should do, as we've discussed just now with enforcement and ensuring people are out there returning to work. But beyond that, we need to do something to kickstart this now.
Here is Rich in Utica as a question for you, Joe. Rich, you're on with Senator Joe Griffo.
Hi, Senator.
Morning, Rich.
I just got a quick question for you. So now that everybody's going back to work, Department of Labor, they're all going back to work, opening their office, DMV, they're going to go back to work as an example to everybody? Thank you. I'll listen on that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Rich. Are the offices open now?
I think what Rich is saying, if I understood correctly, the complaint here, but he's talking about when are these things going to start opening because people are going back to work, and what about the government offices? And he's correct. All government offices should begin to function under the appropriate guidance right now. There's no reason for any facility, in my opinion, to be closed. So wherever we see problems, whether it's in the DMV or in city halls, I'm hopeful now that you're going to see a return to the routine business that the people need to conduct in these public facilities. I
want to say I saw something from Madison County that around June 21st, about maybe June 18th, somewhere just past the halfway point of the month, Madison County is going to reopen its DMV to walk-ins, no more appointments and all that stuff. Actually, I think the 18th is Friday, and they open fully on the 21st, and it'll be like it was before. But I'll be honest, I haven't seen anything like that from Oneida County or from Herkimer County or statewide, a directive statewide that, effective whatever, everything's going to be open again.
I will be checking with the commissioner of the State Department of Motor Vehicles as to a lot of people are, in some ways, sometimes misrepresent protocols because it's easy to blame the state, and the governor has made some decisions that are inconsistent, obviously, and arbitrary, which we've been critical of in the past. But also, I think some of these units have been quick to say, well, the state is telling us to do this. So when that happens, I always check with our state agencies to ensure that the locals are getting the right information so they're allowed to make their decision. But then also they need to be accountable for any decision that they're making that may be inconsistent with what the state has recommended. CDC is a perfect illustration of that, right? They issue recommendations, and then people develop policy accordingly. The CDC is not telling you what to do. They're saying this is what we suggest and recommend based upon the science that we have. And I think that's something I don't have a specific answer right now, but I will check with the state DMV. I know that, locally, the county exec and his team they've done a great job, and the county building has been open. So, and these are agencies, even though they have relationships with the state, I think you can see, and I'm hopeful that they will try to ensure that these offices are returning back to a pre-pandemic period where you're providing the service to the public in a format that is easy to access.
Not exactly in the same vein, but similarly, when we talk to pre-pandemic conditions, yesterday was the final day for bars and restaurants in New York State to have to close early. That indoor dining curfew or the indoor service curfew ended yesterday. So effective today, I guess if they choose, bars and restaurants can stay open till 2 a.m. Effective tonight.
This is going to be interesting in so many ways. So one of the challenges they're going to have now is the employees how we started this conversation in order to maintain the hours. And I don't know what happened, and I heard Bill talking about this, I think, with the sheriff earlier. There is a concern, of behaviors and how people are going to establish policies to reflect that. But also, do people look at things differently now? Did lifestyles change in a lot of ways? So this is going to be an interesting period in so many ways, in my opinion. I'm hopeful that we return to pre-pandemic kind of activity and that interaction and things of that nature that we experienced prior. But we'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. John in Bridgewater with a question for you, Joe. Hello, Joe. John, you're on with Joe.
Hey, Joe, I got a question. I was laid off in 2020 for about a month under the corona thing there, whatever, and the state withheld taxes and the federal withheld taxes, and they weren't supposed to. But the state's not going to reimburse me, but the federal government is supposed to. How do I go about recouping that money?
Well, John, I don't know. We'd have to check into that. So if you call my office, if maybe Andrew can keep John on the line and give him our office number, which is 793-9072, just call the office, and we will look into that for you.
All right.
We've had some cases that are similar, and we've been able to assist. We've helped over thousands of people that have had some type of issue with one of the state agencies. I can't assure what the outcome will be, but we'll do our best to advocate for you because I think as the feds did, the state should do similar. In fact, we're recommending that even on overpayments. We've had that discussion before.
Hold on,
there was an obvious overpayment, and people knew what they were supposed to get and got more. I think there's got to be a factor of accountability. But in many cases, people had never accessed unemployment, were never eligible, and as a result of the pandemic became eligible and didn't know what to expect for a benefit. And now the state's saying, well, we paid you too much, we want some of that back. Well, that's baloney. We should not. If the state made a mistake, it's their mistake that they're going to have to eat, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now, I missed the number. What was your office number?
Hold on a second. We're going to have Andrew give it to you. Okay.
Thank you, Bill.
All right, John. Hold on.
Thank you.
It is. I remember I had years ago I had a DJ service, and when I first started, my tax person said, "Well, you have to collect sales tax." So every time I went out and did a wedding, I don't know, $300 to do a wedding, I would add sales tax to it. I would sell it for $300, but I would pay the sales tax. So I was paying sales tax, and it turned out by the time I was done, I don't know, I'd paid like $7,000 in sales tax until my new accountant said, "You're a service. You don't have to pay sales tax on that." And so I wanted to get the money back, Joe, and you know what happened? I couldn't get the money back. Nope. Your mistake.
Oh, a sales tax, but you have to pay the income tax, but the sales tax you don't have to pay service.
That was a whole other problem. I lived with it 23 or 25 years old. But it's funny. I mean, I hate to say it, but the government makes a mistake, and sorry. Whereas if the individual or the business makes a mistake, boy, you get penalized and fined and everything else.
Yeah. And that's an excellent point. I know there are a number of legislators with like-minded as myself that have tried to ensure that when the state makes a mistake, they need to own that mistake, and they need to, in your case, they would have needed to remit the money to you.
Right.
Because that's the fair way to do it. So I know, I'm not sure in this specific case, so we'll look into it this morning, but hopeful that we can help him receive that money back because I believe it's fair.
Interestingly, the way the state looked at it, and I understand this. Number one, that money's already been distributed out. Number one. Number two, the way they see it is that I collected sales tax. So I collected their tax and then gave it to them. So it's really the person who had the wedding that was shorted and not me. See how they see it? Because that wasn't my money that I gave to them. The problem is I was just eating the sales tax. The wedding always was $300. I just paid that sales tax. I never really charged it to the. So once I stopped paying sales tax, the price remained $300 to do a wedding. You get that?
Yeah, I do.
Well, that's similar to what the government does many times, and this is wrong too. Is if you were late in a payment that's owed to them, they'll assess a penalty.
Right.
But if they're late in giving you a payment that's remitting something back to you, there's no interest that's put on that.
Right.
They just give the right. And that's wrong too, in my opinion. So
yeah, I know you're right, Joe. Okay, interesting stuff. I do think that we should not have to go the whole summer with this unemployment problem lingering out there. I mean, this is especially when we have rates that are the lowest since the pandemic started. Our rates are so low. You can go into any store now, and most people aren't wearing a mask. Yet those very same people that probably are not wearing a mask in Walmart are on unemployment and say they're afraid to go back to work. Are you afraid to go back to work, or are you just enjoying this time? That's my question.
Well, right. Yeah. We're in the final couple of weeks of the regular legislative session, so it'll be interesting, and I'm sure we'll be talking a few more times before the end because there's a lot that will probably be happening.
Okay. Andrew?
Two really quick listener questions. One, with regard to unemployment, are those on unemployment still required to do their, I don't know if it's weekly or monthly, proof that they are applying for jobs?
No.
And then...
Yes, they are.
Are they?
The answer to that is yes. The problem was that there was a different structure put in place because of the pandemic conditions. So I think we need to change that to go back to a more traditional format, where people not only are looking online, but there's so there is a requirement. The question is how that's being enforced right now.
I used to remember we would always get somebody on unemployment that would apply for a job they were never going to get.
Right.
I'm applying to be a microbiologist, yet I don't have the education. Could you sign this paper here? Right? That shows that I tried, right? Second question,
And the
Andrew.
second question, what is your stance on mandatory vaccination for SUNY students to return to school? And if opposed to it, will you be fighting it?
Well, that's already a decision that's been rendered right now. That's made by the SUNY Board of Trustees and the chancellors that we have been inquiring as to the policy and what the options may be. Unfortunately, the mindset of the legislature is to let the executive and the, in this case, SUNY Board of Trustees and SUNY chancellor make these decisions. My general perspective is that we should provide for all but mandate for none. So,
I listen, force them all to do it. If they don't want to do it, don't go to college. Go somewhere else. That's how I see it. You get vaccinated so you don't get me sick or somebody else. You piece of garbage. That's how I feel.
Oh, wow.
Now,
That's a little... So forced?
If you... you have to get a vaccination to have your kid go to public school. Why is this any different? It's not any different. If you aren't able to get a vaccination for a medical reason, there should be an exception. But otherwise, if you want to go to school and mingle in with everybody else, then you better damn well get the vaccination.
Oh,
That's how I feel. Joe, I never get elected. I would never get elected. They'd never elect me.
I think
they wouldn't elect me. It'd be terrible.
Ultimately, these decisions will probably rest in the courts, I think, because of the different perspectives, not only in the community, but also in the political realm.
How is this any different, though, Joe? How is this any different than requiring a public school student to get a vaccination, to get polio, to get measles, to get mumps? How is this any different? And I don't think the governor is going to force vaccinations on students. Well, you can't anyway, right? Because it's not even eligible. You're not even eligible under the age of, 12? But how is this any different?
It's going to be an interesting conversation. I think you need to talk to people that have medical and clinical experience on this type of questions, whether or not what the benefit is and what the risks may be for different populations, age groups, as you're talking about. My perspective simply is, as I indicated to you, provide but not mandate, and then ultimately that the courts probably will be making the rulings that will various entities will have to comply with.
All right. Okay. All right. I disagree with you on this one, Joe. But I know a lot of people. A lot of people disagree with me, and I really don't care. So, with that said,
well, we can agree on one thing before we end the conversation. It's hard to believe it's already June.
Can you believe it's June 1st?
I mean, it's here already.
You believe it?
Who saw it coming?
Joe, I wanted to. We had a conversation recently.
The answer to that one might be that why is it June? Is because we're at the halfway point of the year.
It could be.
So maybe that's how people look at it. Like 6 months are already behind us, right?
Yeah. And technically, July 1st would be the halfway point of the year because you're through 6 months, and then you have 6 more to go. We're right now. We're through 5. We've got 7 to go.
Joe, we're here to just disagree with you today. I hope you know that.
That's fine. I'm still going to compliment you because it's Say Something Nice, right?
Today is Say Something Nice Day. So here's what I'd like to say that's something nice. As people are now calling in and yelling at Andrew because of what I said about vaccines. Listen, I think that one of the very important jobs people in the legislature or people in Congress, Senate, Assembly, the works. I think one of the very important jobs is constituent services, helping people out when they are in need. And that is one of the things, Joe, that I don't believe most people give you credit for. But you have an amazing office over there that goes to work and goes to bat for people when they're not getting what they should be getting, whether it be government or from whatever the scenario. You guys do a very, very positive job over there in that regard.
Well, thank you. We have a great staff. They all work very hard, and I'm proud of all of them. And you're right. We've helped a lot of people, and not only sometime in government-related problems, but even outside and different levels of government. But that's a philosophy and a pledge that we made from the very beginning when I took office. And I'm proud to say that we have a staff that believes likewise, and they work hard and hopefully are making that difference each and every day. So thank you.
All right, Joe, thanks. Have a wonderful day.
Take care, Senator. Have a good day.
Enjoy June 1st, June Day. Today is National June Day.
National June Day.
Can I bring in Rick here from Rome? Hello, Rick in Rome. You're on the radio.
Hey, good morning, Bill.
Hi. What's up?
I just wanted to let you know there is a little difference between the shots that the children are required to get now and the vaccine that you're talking about.
Okay.
One is an emergency use authorization versus approved by the FDA.
Okay, that's fair.
The other one is 4,000 people have died from this vaccination. I don't think 4,000 children have died from getting their vaccination for the measles or the mumps. And those types of things.
I don't know anything about your numbers, to be honest with you, Rick, but I think that the number of people who have died from the COVID-19 vaccination, is so low, it is insignificant. And I know that anyone who dies...
300 million people get it, and only that many die. It's a very
I understand.
low number.
Any single person that dies is terrible. But
you're saying what's the difference? There are.
Well, that's not, because there are rare instances as well with measles, mumps, and polio and those vaccines where there are complications. There are complications in those as well.
Much lower percentage.
I don't know what the percentage is, but I could make it up. That tends to be what we do on the radio. We just say things we don't even know what we're talking about.
We can agree about the emergency authorization versus the FDA.
I agree with you. I do agree with you. Have you gotten the vaccine, Rick?
I haven't.
You haven't. You're not going to get it.
I'm not against it, though. I'm not preaching against it. I don't post against it.
Okay.
I'm happy that anyone that wants to get it, they could get 10 of them if they want.
Do you? I was going to get 10 to be able to get the scratch-offs. So, do you?
I may have the antibodies. I have to be tested. I believe I had COVID, so that's the reason.
Well,
why. I don't want to.
And I had it as well, and I did get the vaccine based on the recommendations that I received from my physician. But I want to ask you too, Rick. When you go into a store, if it says non-vaccinated, do you wear a mask? And they ask people who are not vaccinated to wear a mask. Do you wear a mask?
I absolutely wear a mask.
Good.
And
Good for you.
I'd like everyone to wear a mask that's not vaccinated.
Listen, you know what's going around? The diarrhea. That's what's going around now. The sickness, the stomach sickness. All of a sudden, everybody started. Are you hearing it? Monaski was sick last week. I had to go through my house. All of a sudden, you start hearing people getting colds again. I was enjoying that respite from all of that stuff.
I've got, matter of fact, Bill, you wouldn't know it by listening to me right now, but I've got a mask on.
Do you do? Well, I cannot tell. So that's really good. All right, Rick, thank you.
Appreciate it, Bill.
Okay, you have a great day. That is Rick in Rome. And listen, I know I get fiery on this topic. It's just how I feel. I feel that I don't have a problem with it being like cruise lines. The governor in Florida is going nuts over the cruise lines that are saying that you can go on a cruise, but you must be vaccinated. And the governor is trying to prevent that from happening, so they're at odds. I think the governor is wrong. If they want to require that, it's their business. Let them require it. What's it his business to get involved with them? And by the way, the virus or any virus on a cruise line, you might as well name it, instead of they have these majestic names for these cruise ships, they might as well just name them all Incubator 1, Incubator 2. Yeah. Because that's exactly what it is.
Some comments here via the WIBX 950 app. Dave says, this gets back to when we were talking about hourly wage. Why would someone want to take on the responsibility of being a lifeguard for $13 an hour when they can be a cashier at Target for $15 an hour? Maybe the local cities need to up the pay scale a bit.
Or they can sit at home for who knows what. Do nothing and make more money than they'd be making lifeguarding.
Yeah, and I wonder if they're having an issue too at pools finding lifeguards to do this.